Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Skoldiers and Spice. I am your host, Sally, here on the Vikings First and SKOL Network, here for another Victory Tuesday episode. This is our ninth one, for those of you keeping track at home. We have plenty to dive into tonight, from Sunday's heart-stopping overtime victory over the Chicago Bears to quite a few roster moves this week and one big rumor. Plus, the Vikings are finally coming back home for a big game against the Arizona Cardinals. So we got a lot to talk about. Tonight, I am so excited. I'm joined by my two former co-hosts of the Bleav in Vikings Network. It's the first time we've gotten together, so excited to reconnect with them and get Raun's thoughts on his two favorite quarterbacks that he loves to hate and them being associated with the Vikings. So let's get into it. Hi, boys.
What up?
Hello.
Hi, how you guys doing?
Not bad.
Not bad.
Can't
Well,
complain.
I'm so excited to see you, Raun. For when we haven't talked to you, we were trying to figure out when our last show was, and Dustin, you maybe remember, it was either, did we even make it to training camp before we got fired? Did we have one training camp episode?
I'd like to point out that I was the one that was fired, not the rest of you. No, it was. I think we're about 5-6 months removed. So when I heard that Ron was going to be here tonight, it was super exciting because we haven't picked his brain on this 9-2 football team.
No, and Raun has came up several times when you and I have talked, whether it was your show or my show, and we'll get his thoughts on that topic in a second. But let's see, I saw that Legend of Cora, our girl, is here. So hey, Cora, and Christina's here. Dan's here. So thank you guys so much for being here, especially the girlies. We love it. We love having the girlies in the chat. Okay, you guys. And by the way, I mean, yeah, you did get fired, but we stuck together in solidarity, for one. That's what. Yeah, we had each other's back there, and I think it was the week before camp started, because I remember seeing a certain little weasel at night practice after that all went down. But anyway. Let's talk about this Chicago Bears game. It was crazy. Dustin predicted an ugly one. I know he thought maybe they would even get an L. So, well, shit. I thought we should catch up with Raun first. Fuck, but I already led into that. We'll connect with Raun in a second. All right, Dustin. What were your thoughts when it went into overtime?
So a couple times since I started this Vikings writing and content thing, I've been asked, like, for a video montage or a writing thing, like, what's the worst part of being a Vikings fan? And my response is always consistent: is we've seen enough stuff, shit, bad things, that we can kind of cynically predict the bad stuff that's about to happen. And then the worst part of being a Vikings fan is thinking those evil thoughts and then it playing out in front of you. And that's what happened to me with the Bears on Sunday. 24-10. When DeAndre Carter took that kick, I was like, watch, he's going to return it. We're going to have a ball game. Well, he almost did. And then the series of like 4 or 5 events that had to happen for the Bears to even be remotely relevant in the game happened. And as soon as that asshole said the stat about, no onside kicks recovered and however many blah, blah, blahs, I was like, well, that one's going to be recovered. And it was. And so I would have bet thousands of dollars at like 3:15 p.m. Central Time that they were going to lose when overtime started. Thankfully, we learned, at least to an extent, Sam Darnold has a clutch gene. And that was my big only takeaway is, okay, that guy, he treated that brushed adversity like a playoff game. And somehow, despite all of the wacky shit that always happens to the Vikings at that stadium, they came out with a win. That was my takeaway. It was oddly satisfying after I pouted like a second grader for about 15 minutes.
I think we all, when we saw it go off of Johnny Munn's foot, we were like, are you serious? Are you serious? Like, this cannot be happening. It's like the first onside kick recovered this season. But you brought up Sam Darnold and his drive, 6 for 6, to get the Vikings into field goal range. Ron, you have been one of Sam Darnold's biggest critics over the last 4 years that we had a show together. It seemed like Sam Darnold came up, at least every other episode with you as your example of a quarterback that you did not want on your team.
Yep.
So when the ball was in his hands there in overtime, how did you feel?
Well, honestly, I was confident because that was, in my opinion, the best game he's played all his career. Because and we can get into the pre-Vikings Darnold later, but what he was doing on Sunday, aside from his stupid ass rolling out left when he's a right-handed thrower, I'll never understand that. But he
Only Kurt
didn't
get away with
stare down
that.
JJ. He didn't stare down JJ. He didn't force throws. He was finding the other options that were available. Like there's plenty of weapons on this offense, and Addison, Hawkinson, Aaron Jones, they all ate. So whereas what he's to this point in this season, where he's gotten into trouble, has been just trying to, look for 18 and force it in, which I get because he's the best receiver in the world, but those were problematic at times. But he was flawless throughout the game, and that was with the backup left tackle in Quisenberry. So big props to him for and the Bears have a good defense. I mean, I don't know who shuffles in and out now, but they have a pretty solid defense. So when I say I was confident because he's played well this year, I'm not going to deny that he's played extremely well. So my lack of confidence comes from, like Dustin was alluding to, there's always something that rears its ugly head. I mean, we were up by 11 points with 24 seconds left, and we somehow went to overtime. Like that's the Vikings way. So. But yeah, like he was flawless. He was dropping dimes. The Hawkinson, like, and the coverage for the Bears dictated a lot of that, but you still got to be able to make the throws, and that's what he did.
I know. I think is this going to be the 5th year in a row that it's Skoldier Field, or only the 4th? Is this
No,
their
this
5th
is
one?
their fifth win in a row. They haven't
Yes.
lost since that nasty 2019 game, one of the bad Cousins games at Soldier Field.
Yeah, so we can continue. We can call it Skoldier Field at this point. It is Skoldier Field until proven otherwise. But the chat is popping off tonight, you guys. I'm so excited about this. I need to say hi to Dan, Mr. Legend of Korra. He's here as well. We have Chevy Chase. Hello. We got a super chat from Skol Mafia. Thank you so much for that. Hello, Julian, George. It's been a minute, George, since I've seen you, hasn't it? Who else am I missing here? Okay. I'll come back to it in a second, you guys. This is just popping off. So if you're in the chat, make sure you like and subscribe. We really appreciate it. Okay, yeah, I agree. I mean, Sam Darnold, I think also is one of his best games. I don't know. You guys know I've been like oddly positive the last like couple years or something, or maybe 2 years. But I also felt I was the most scared that it was going to be a tie. For me, I would rather have lost than a tie. And I know mathematically that doesn't make sense, but it's just so frustrating when you sit there and you watch a game for like 3-4 hours and there's no resolution. You're just like, okay. Dustin, what did you think when they decided not to go and even try to get the TD? They just decided they were going to kick it. How confident were you in Parker Romo?
Well, I've got a long memory, and I'll be honest with you. The first thing I thought of was the Cardinals game of 2021 when Mike Zimmer elected to do the same thing, and we savaged him for it afterward because Greg Joseph missed the field goal. I think it's a safe play, especially when you're only 29 yards away. I don't have a problem when a coach does that. But I was right there, I think probably with at least 50% of Vikings fans, probably more, that thought this guy's going to miss it, isn't he? And we are going to have one of those ties or we're going to lose. So I don't know. If it would have been Will Reichard, I probably wouldn't have had those butterflies, maybe a little bit. But I guess I'm a little bit more conservative in this realm, that if you're that close for a field goal and it's not really raining or crazy windy, I'm confident putting it in your hand to your kicker, especially when you have a quarterback who might still lead the league in turnovers. I was fine with it, and I'm glad that all of the bad voodoo that was going on for those previous 20 minutes had ended. So I just want to point out that for 25 years outside of the Ryan Longwell era, we have sought a kicker who is consistent, and now we seem to have two. at least 1, 2 that are clutch. And what a cool problem to have. It's going to be really shitty in like a week and a half when we say goodbye to Parker Romo and he's going to get a job elsewhere. Of course, we'll cheer him on, but I don't think there is precedent for the Vikings having 2 sweet kickers in the same season.
No, and you and I have talked about that the other day, and also how there has been the debate all year about what are they going to do with Sam Darnold next year? Like, what's going to happen?
Mm-hmm.
And it's been like, when have we ever had this issue before? I mean, this is a good problem to have, and that we're even having this conversation. And then this kicker thing also, it's just so weird how this is working out because we've been desperate for these things for so long, and now we have options, which is really weird. But Raun, what were your feelings when they decided to line up for the kick, and they've got all this pressure on this new guy that we haven't seen? I mean, obviously we've seen him hit kicks, but I mean, this was a high pressure situation. How did you think that was going to go?
I mean, I know analytics will say go for it and try to end it, but I think we can all remember that Alexander Madison run against the Seahawks where he missed the hole and didn't get the first down, and that cost us. So I'm in the boat of, and I always lean on analytics, but when you have a chance to go up by 11, like it's not, going up by 8 or whatever. It's a 2-score game, and you need a fluky stuff to happen to lose, which, of course, being Vikings fans, that's going to happen with Johnny Munt, and his leg getting in the way. But I was all for it going for the field goal. Yeah, weirdly enough, like maybe it's the Darnold effect too. Like I'm not anxious when he's back there. Like maybe there's a little bit of when he does something stupid. There's the real Sam Darnold. But the kickers, yeah, like maybe Reichert. Like I just haven't been as nervous with kickers this year. So it's again going through the Blair Walsh and Daniel Carlson, those years of not being able to make routine kicks. But I felt good about it. But also in my head too, it was if he misses it, they still need a touchdown and 2-point conversion. So you're almost in you're in a very rare lose situation at that point because they still need to put the ball in the end zone and get the 2-point conversion. So I was comfortable with it. I'm glad obviously he made it, and then obviously the walk-off winner.
Yeah, I was super nervous going into that. I almost was just like, don't you guys want to run a couple more plays and maybe just see if you can get it in there? Because I wasn't worried about Chicago getting the ball back. I just was worried that they were going to miss the kick, and then it was going to be the tie game, which so yeah, Sam Darnold, I saw someone say in the chat, Sam Darnold needs more love from the fans. I completely agree. I certainly didn't see anyone trash talking him this week, especially after his performance the week before. So, I'm a Sam Darnold defender, so I'm very happy to see the fans coming around. But here we go. We got Dan with a criticism, right? As I said that. Sam needs to go through reads faster. That is his biggest weakness.
That's true.
I can't do it, and not saying it's easy, but that is what separates him from elite quarterback play.
That's the trade-off you have. That's the trade-off you have real quick between he and Kirk is believe it or not, a much faster processor in the pocket. However, Darnold is a much more mobile. And then I swear to God, there's something about Sam Darnold that is 1,000 times better at quarterback sneaks than Kirk Cousins, where with Sam, we're like, just go do it because you're going to get it. With Kirk, we had to be on eggshells. But I agree with that comment that I don't know if he can improve it, but his processing speed is not what we are accustomed to with Cousins. It takes a little bit longer, and that's why I think he holds the ball too long.
One other thing too, and again, like I'm not going into my Sam Darnold arsenal of criticizing what he was before here, but one of the subtle things too, like again, he's been playing great, but there's a big difference in his ball placement versus Kirk Cousins. Like there are times when Addison has to reach up for the ball, or the ball's not exactly where it needs to be. But again, we're nitpicking here now because we're a 9-2 football team, and we're far ahead of where we all expected, I'm sure. And now it's not just getting to 6-7 wins. Now it's maybe there's a playoff run because Darnold isn't screwing us over, and our defense is stepping up when it matters.
Well, yeah, Raun, you just brought up the defense, so let's move on to that because Caleb, he still, I feel like this is obviously the first time the Vikings have faced him, and they're going to be facing him well, by Bears standards, probably only 3.5 more years. But if it works out for them, then they could be facing him for the next decade. How did Ron? How did you think that this defense uh, took care? How do you think that they did with Caleb, and especially going into playing another mobile quarterback this week with Kyler?
I think they played well. I mean, I know they didn't necessarily pile up the sacks that, Caleb Williams has been allowing to this point, but pressure was there. They were making him move out of the pocket, making him process things faster. You see Van Ginkel I don't think he had a sack, but he's everywhere around the field, like making plays, that don't show up on the stat sheet. And obviously, Grenard getting that big sack on that play where Williams had an hour to throw the ball, but that's what happens when you have a three-man rush against max protect. So not blaming the defense. Maybe don't let them have that time. Like that's the one thing I love about Brian Flores. It's not the Ed Donatel. We're just going to sit back and let him have time. It's like I hate these prevent defenses, but it worked out at least in that overtime, and obviously Grenard got the sack. So defense, yeah, like I'm impressed with everything across the board.
Yeah, Dustin, what do you have to add to that as far as their performance against the Bears?
So I am eternally joyful and grateful that after that Rams game, the defense rebounded. It certainly helped that you played Joe Flacco, Will Levis, Mac Jones, and then a rookie in Caleb Williams. So I want to say that when I left, I went to the Rams game in Los Angeles. When I left that game, I was like, God, if we're doing this again where the defense is suddenly dead like last December, we're cooked. That hasn't been the case. Now they'll get some more firm tests against Kyler and Kirk in the next 2 weeks. But what I saw from Caleb Williams is exactly what I would expect from a raw rookie quarterback. There were some plays that were like, gosh, man, that guy's good. He seemed to stay in the pocket more and didn't lean into that manufactured chaos tendency that he had at USC that everybody loved for some reason. You can't get away with that at the NFL on every play like he did at USC. So for his sake, he stayed in the pocket, but there were some throws that was like, God, a veteran would have got us there. That throw sucked. But I think he's going to be just fine because I'm pretty sure they're going to fire Eberflus here in, a month or so, month and a half. And I think if they get an offensive coach, maybe from the McVay or Shanahan tree that can help him out, he'll be just fine. The defense is the next big test to see if we can survive 4 games without Ivan Pace, because next man up is great, and it's worked pretty well for the Vikings, but you can only get away with it so long. And I am nervous that the pass rush will dip without Ivan Pace. Let's face it, Ivan Pace isn't really a savant in pass coverage, but he does everything else really well. So whether it's Jamin Davis or Grugier Hill or Brian Asamoah, God forbid he plays a little defense, I am a little nervous that the defense is going to take a step back without Ivan Pace.
Well, let's get into that since you just brought up Ivan Pace going to IR. They made a signing today, which I think everyone was a little bit surprised. Well, at least I was surprised about. I didn't, I guess, even think about them signing somebody else, but they added Jamin Davis. What do I not a name I'm personally familiar with, but I bet you are. So why don't you fill us in on the 411 with him?
Are you asking
that,
me?
Ron? You want me to do it?
I was asking Dustin because I figured he already did a deep dive today. You can certainly chime in, Ron, if you want to.
So, well, me, I love the pickup. I don't know why it didn't work out in Washington. The only thing I can think of, I know that they were trying him as an edge rusher this year, which completely out of position for him. He is a big guy. He's like 6'4", 230, 240 pounds. Freak athlete out of Kentucky. Like I think he was in the 4.4s. So I'm excited to see what he brings to the table in a Flores defense, because when he was at his best his rookie year and early on in Washington, he was as an inside backer, and kind of like in that Ivan Pace type mold, just bigger, where good at rushing the passer from the interior. I don't know why they made him an edge, but I don't know about his coverage ability, but that's why you have Cashman in the middle anyways. So, I mean, he fits the mold of Kwesi liking to pluck former first round picks that didn't seem to work out. This goes back when they, obviously, Jerry Tillery. I mean, put your name or put any name to it. So even like Ross Blacklock, when they made a trade for him using a second round pick. So he likes trying to be this reclamation project, and for a guy that's 24 26, and we need linebacker help obviously right now. It's worth a shot, and I feel like I'm not downplaying the position by any means, but I feel like linebackers got to be one of the easiest to be able to step in and be able to contribute right away because it's see ball, go get ball, and I mean especially as a in a 3-4 type defense. So all the help we can get a big body, and I mean I love the move. I'd rather that than a different NFC East edition this on today.
Yeah. Yeah. Dustin, you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I enjoy it too, because I don't know if we can trust the other two dudes, Grugier Hill and Asamoah, for 4 weeks. And with Davis, um, it's so weird that the Commanders would have tried him at edge rusher because it would almost be like, so he came into the league as an off-ball linebacker, and the Commanders decided you're going to be an edge guy. It would almost be like this week us telling Jordan Addison, you know what, homie, you're a running back now. Let's see how that works. We'd be like, all right, maybe. But it didn't quite work out because, you guessed it, Davis is an off-ball linebacker. He does have the speed. He's just like Ivan Pace, where he's good at rushing the passer as an off-ball linebacker. He's good at stopping the run. His pass coverage isn't great, and he's bigger than Ivan Pace. So he's Ivan Pace, but not quite as good. And then he also stopped by the Packers organization about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and so he's another turncoat, at least in a miniature capacity. I don't know that he'll play out of the gate. Hopefully, that'd be kind of cool. But I've been using these past few hours digesting how the defense is going to be without Ivan Pace. And so I need to see something from Davis for me to be like, all right, hey, we're going to be just fine. Because like I said at the top of this segment, you can only so long keep saying, hey, we don't need Darisaw. Like, oh, we don't need McCarthy. Mekhi Blackman, forget about him. You can only get away with that for so long. I don't think this coaching staff is that brilliant, maybe.
One other thing that
Yeah.
I think is going to be interesting is I wonder if Flores is going to use Van Ginkel in the middle a little bit more, and that Dallas Turner see the field a little bit more. So,
Yeah.
I mean, Van Ginkel has that versatility to line up anywhere in that second level. So, like that's one advantage of having the depth that we have. But that's also assuming Brian Cashman's able to play every game, which hasn't been the case to this point.
Yeah. Okay. Those of you who are just tuning in, this is my reunion with Raun and Dustin, two of my former co-hosts of, I Bleav, 4-ish years on the Bleav in Vikings. So having a great time catching up with them. Please like and subscribe to Vikings First and SKOL if you are not already. Okay. So Raun, let's rehash. So anybody who didn't watch our old show, Bleav in Vikings, we did that with Bryant McKinney. And thanks to Bryant, we had so many awesome guests over the years. And I mean, gosh, we had Randy Moss, we had Mike Tice, we had Nate Burleson, Jared Allen, Edger and James. Who else? We have Ed Reed. We had so many awesome guests. And me and Dustin have already talked about this. So I want to know, of all of the people we got to talk to over those 4 years, who was your favorite and why?
Well, Randy Moss, hands down. I think when I first joined the show, as a guest, it was Warren Sapp was the guest, and I remember Dustin asking if I was okay with that, and I'm like, "Am I okay with that?" So that would kind of kick-started things, and then as I got to know Bryant, it was the Randy Moss was the one where it was like, all right, I mean, I'm born in '86, so I was peak football watching for me. So Randy Moss is what was the reason for my love of the Vikings. So, and I was, fortunate enough to be able to bring that to him and let him know. And then, to get the straight cash homie from the man himself, like that, that was the best, for someone who's not, a journalist or, on social media and active and stuff. That was, for me, the coup de grace of my, podcasting days. So.
Yeah, that Randy Moss episode, it was so surreal to be talking to him. First of all, it was crazy. He was in West Virginia and was it his office? I think there was like a fish on the wall.
Yeah,
And
he was on vacation. He was using his daughter's laptop. Like,
oh yeah, I remember. I should go back and watch some of these episodes, but I just remember it gets to be my turn, and it's like my second question I get to ask him or something, and I finally am like, I'm gonna ask him about the catering. I'm asking what it was. What was the food? What was the food that got him axed? What sent Chili over the edge? And then there's he's on his daughter's laptop in West Virginia, and there's a glitch, there's a connection issue as I'm asking. And I was like, so he still answered the question, but I think it would have been so much better if he got to hear every single thing that I said. So whatever, regardless, it was an awesome moment.
And the whole
Dustin's a
thing, like, through everyone we had, like, I don't think we had a bad guest. Like, ironically, the week after, and I'm sure you guys remember this, the week after Randy Moss, we went to Troy Williamson, which didn't work out so well for the Vikings, but Troy Williamson was one of the best interviews we had, like, because how open
The
and
best.
honest he was about everything. And so, yeah, for those who haven't listened or watched or listened, go back and listen to them because of the perspective that a lot of these guys that they brought, like it was outside of football a lot of times, and there's a lot of good insight there. So kudos to Bryant for setting all those up.
Yeah, that's what Dustin and I talked about when we had this conversation before. I think we both said Troy Williamson was our favorite guest, and the timing of that was crazy because it was right after Randy Moss, and it's like obviously you're a sky high, and then I remember just being like, "What the fuck am I going to ask Troy Williamson? Like, I don't want to offend him with anything I have to
Right.
ask." And so it was really crazy how that worked out. But I know he was one of Dustin's favorite guests as well.
And well, it was funny because
Yeah.
we were telling people when we would tease each episode with the guest, we put on Twitter next week is Troy Williamson, and the comments were like, "Ooh, brutal," like we had like a big like argue like bad thing in front of us. And Sally, we mentioned this. How silly of us as grown adults to go into that interview thinking like, "Oh, hopefully this doesn't suck." Like, it was a human being, and we were treating him like a guy who dropped footballs. It was a big learning moment for at that time a 38-year-old dude.
Yeah, I mean, he was just one of the. I've said like I definitely want to ask him to come on here for Men's Mental Health Month and share his story again because I mean I think not enough people have heard it for sure. I mean we had him on, but can't think of anybody else who's had him on. In that I mean I don't know, no one's coming to mind to me that's had him on. So I certainly want to ask him to come back and share that story because it is a great story. I just want to say, you guys, I don't know if the chat is frozen on my end or something, but I have not seen chats coming through. So if it's not frozen, maybe just give me a holler so I know if it is or not. But just want to say I'm not ignoring you. If you have been in the chat, it's not popping up. Okay, where do we want to go from here? Okay, well, also we mentioned the Ivan Pace roster. Ivan Pace to IR. There was also a couple other roster moves earlier, this week before the game. Another casualty of Kwesi's 2022 draft class, a Caleb Williams. Oh my God, a Caleb Evans. See, I'm doing this thing again. Caleb Evans. Believe me, I know a Caleb. Okay, he's been in the DMs some before. But anyway, Caleb was cut, another casualty. And then poor Nick Muse was cut on his birthday. Dustin, you have any feelings who these guys are making room for?
Well, let's see, Davis, because Ivan Pace went to IR. I mean, this isn't. I don't think if you follow Vikings football pretty intently, the Daniel Jones rumor mill stuff is very real. I expect him to sign with the Vikings actually. So I mean, that's not like hot take, it's going to happen, but I wouldn't be surprised one iota if Daniel Jones becomes the QB2, QB3 here. Caleb Evans, that really does turn the page on the 2022 draft class because he was the one guy about this time last year that we could be like, well, hey, look, Ty Chandler's playing better. Caleb Evans is a starter. And the thing that really sucks about that draft class is just like this last
Everything.
March, you're going to have flawless free agent sessions to make up for not having those guys in the pipeline. Thankfully, they have some pretty good undrafted dudes in Ivan Pace. But eventually, there will probably be a time where we look down at the roster and say, God, there's not a lot of meat on the bone. And that will be either right now, we've just made up for it, or next year, because you can't really whiff that badly on a draft class and get away with it. Now, the 49ers have done it from time to time, like Trey Lance. Nobody cares that they whiffed on that. But just head to toe, that draft class outside of Ty Chandler as a RB3 and Jalen Naylor as a WR3 isn't good. And then a Caleb Evans should get a second chance in Carolina because their cornerback depth is a little suspect. And then Nick Muse, I'm pretty sure that they'll bring him back if he doesn't get plucked on the practice squad.
Okay, I just
Not
need
to
to give a
mention
shout out.
the biggest downfall. Oh, sorry, the biggest downfall of that
Okay.
draft is passing on Kyle Hamilton and then trading back to get Lewis Seen. So, like, you have a star player right in your grasp and you pass on it.
Yeah. Christina said, I think we're all just listening. Y'all fit together so well, and it's so great to listen to. And that is the nicest thing I've ever read, Christina. So thank you so
Okay.
much.
A lot of practice.
Yeah, yeah, a lot of practice. But okay, so Dustin brought up Daniel Jones. I feel like a lot of people are saying this. Dave was telling me this earlier that he didn't think it was a terrible idea. But that's why I had to have Ron here. Probably probably Daniel Jones is number one hater out there. And like I said, for those of you who didn't listen to our show, it was either Sam Darnold or Daniel Jones that came up every single episode without fail. And now,
Usually Daniel Jones.
Yeah. Well, because it
Yeah.
was us that he torched in the one game he ever had a good game. So
Twice.
Right.
well,
Right.
twice, yeah.
Ron, how will you sleep at night if both of these quarterbacks are on your favorite team's roster?
Well, hey, I'll go ahead and even say it too. Like, I'll eat the crow on Darnold. Like, all of that hatred I had for him because he hadn't proven anything. He's now proven at least he's a viable quarterback. And there's always that part of me that won't fully trust him. But again, we're at 9 wins, and I didn't think we'd get to 7, so I can't complain. So Darnold has proven that he is worth a shot of being a starter in the NFL. Daniel Jones, on the other hand, this guy just flat out sucks. Like, I mean, he is. Darnold looked bad, but like everyone would always say he was in a bad situation, and like I don't know if I've ever heard anyone say Daniel Jones just needs an opportunity. Like, what the hell are we doing? He wasn't good at Duke. At least Darnold played at USC. Like, Daniel Jones maybe a smart guy, but he doesn't play basketball. And if you don't play basketball, what's the point of going to Duke? So, but I'm not. I if we sign him, I don't care because, I mean, if he ever sees the field, we're screwed anyways. But personally, I don't think he's better than Nick Mullins. Like, at least Nick Mullins can throw for 400 yards. It's just, is he going to throw 3 picks or not? So the only advantage I see in bringing him in is if you bring him in, and then if some team does sign him in the offseason, like there's going to be a stupid team out there, then you get a compensatory pick for it. So from that aspect, why not? But if I ever see Daniel Jones under center and purple, I may throw something at my TV. And it'll be more accurate than a Daniel Jones pass.
Oh my God. Yeah. That's the point that Dave was making to me earlier about the compensatory pick, which I can see that. But Dustin, what do you think, though, that this could possibly do to Sam Darnold's confidence that they bring in Daniel Jones? That's my main concern.
I don't have a beef with. I don't think. I mean, Sam Darnold was brought in to probably lose a job to JJ McCarthy, and McCarthy tore his meniscus. So I think this would just be insurance against Darnold personally, because he's been like 3 or 4 times he's been dinged up on a Sunday in real time, and we had to hold our breath. I don't share the resentment towards Daniel Jones quite as much as Ron, and there's one reason why. He's been demoted. He's got to start at 0 now to work his way back up to be a starter in this league. And one of the most confusing things that we do as fans is we lump all quarterbacks together, and we're like, oh, damn it, Jaren Hall's not good. That sucks. He's a bust. There are places in the NFL for backup quarterbacks. And if the Vikings sign Daniel Jones on this depth chart, that's what he'll be. Now, what I don't want is some god-awful summer quarterback competition next summer between Daniel Jones and JJ McCarthy. I will do the throwing the thing at the television too. But I have come to accept that, hey, Daniel Jones is a QB2 in this league, probably one of the better ones that there is. And so if the Vikings think, Kevin O'Connell thinks like, you know what, I can polish this guy, I would be okay if they signed him for the rest of the season, although I'm also a Nick Mullins guy. So if it came down to Darnold injury, I don't know who I'd pick. I'd probably want to see Mullins because he knows the playbook better than any Vikings quarterback right now. The deal with Daniel Jones, I think, is he has the mobility, which we would warm up to in an emergency. He's pretty accurate, all things considered, but he just doesn't have the arm strength. And believe it or not, Sam Darnold has that. That's why he was the 3rd overall pick 6 years ago. So I think that is what will prevent Daniel Jones from latching on in this Darnold-like or Baker Mayfield-like aura that we've seen the last 2 seasons. He doesn't have the arm strength to me. But if he wants to come play for the Vikings as the safety valve, emergency plan if Sam Darnold does get hurt, I'm more than okay with it. Although with Nick Mullins, I agree 100% with Ron. Like, that guy would have such a different reputation right now if the Vikings defense didn't die the moment he stepped foot on the field. It was against the Bengals, and the Vikings defense, they wrote an obituary that very day, and they never recovered. I think Nick Mullins would have had his own like Joe Flacco story with the Browns last year if Brian Flores' defense would have stayed good through the rest of the season.
Yeah, that was so crazy how that happened. And the poor Daniel Jones, yeah, he owes his entire future to the Vikings for messing up that game as well. Okay, so that made a lot of sense to me. I definitely feel better about it now. Like I said, I was worried about Darnold maybe feeling like his job was in question or whatever. But you made a lot of sense with that. But it is crazy how many has it been 3 games now that Nick Mullins has had to come in, or was that just the second one? They're letting him pass.
Where he's thrown 2 passes.
Yeah.
He's come in 3 times. One at home, I think, against the 49ers or Texans.
The Texans,
then in London. Sure. Yeah, then in London, he came in and threw that side little out, I guess you want to call it that, to Aaron Jones. Sweet.
Yeah.
And then this
all of his completions on 3rd downs.
Yeah, he just comes in and he just looks absolutely like deadpan, like, yeah, I can start flinging this thing. And I don't know, if something happens to Darnold, I am, I don't know, grotesquely excited to see Nick Mullins with this defense.
The 2 times that he's been in and thrown those passes, I remember thinking, even, on Sunday, what are you doing? Why are you letting him pass the ball? Why are we even risking this right now? And this pass was a lot prettier than the first one against the Texans where, Aaron Jones pretty much got his head cut off almost, even though, they got the first down. So that was good. But Ron,
Nick Mullins is the only quarterback throughout my 28 years of Vikings fandom where if it's 3rd and 26, I'm like, hey, we can get this. I've never felt that way about any other quarterback. Not Cunningham in 98, not Jeff Jordan, not Dante. With Nick Mullins, that's like what's when he's like, all right, here we go, 3rd and 27, we can do this. And I've watched him do it.
He's got a great arm. It's just the other aspects of his game, like that it takes to play quarterback, like, decision making, like, that type of stuff. But yeah, like to your point, he can chuck it up there and, who knows?
Okay, Ron, is there any closing thoughts you have on Daniel Jones before we move on? Because I want to make sure you get it all out there.
Like I said, like Dustin's right. Like, he is a fine backup in this league. Like, you could do a lot worse. So I have zero issue with that. But like the people who are talking about this, like, oh, where's Daniel Jones going to sign? Like, who cares? He's a backup. Like, like any team unless he goes to the Raiders, like, he's not, like, he doesn't have a chance. Like, and I'm not saying that his career as a starter is over, because obviously, like, Darnold has proven me wrong. Like, Baker Mayfield, like, there's guys who have gone out there and they needed the right situation. I'm just saying, again, to this point, Thanksgiving weekend or week of 2024, Daniel Jones is one of the worst quarterbacks I've ever seen play that is guaranteed a job. Compile that with his $40 million contract. Like, there's been worse quarterbacks that have played, but they don't get rewarded with a giant ass deal and then get demoted, not just to 4-string quarterback, to safety on the practice squad, then cut them. Like what the hell? So even they don't want to risk him getting hurt at all. So, but again, if he's a Viking as a backup, yeah, I'd much rather have, 2 guys that can step in at a moment's notice. Because, last year we, had to watch Jaron Hall for a drive, had to live through, 3.5 quarters of Josh Dobbs looking competent, and then wheels fell off.
Okay. Yeah, this is oh man, Ron, I miss you a lot. I'm so glad that we got to speak about this. I'm about to cry. But hello, Barber, so nice to see you. George said, where did it go, George? Okay, Mullins will hawk the ball to everyone. So that's pretty spicy. And Cora said, loved watching you guys again. You should do it again sometime. So that was so sweet.
Oh, yeah.
And I also saw Bulldog. Okay, Bulldog LLC. Hello to you as well. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about this Cardinals game. Let's wrap up. Ron, not only have I not talked to you on a show, but I also haven't seen you at a tailgate. So what's up with that? Explain
know.
yourself.
Well, didn't he get too wasted the last time?
Before the
forgot about
Texans game, I was gonna come and
No,
well, I
like
mean, I
last year.
wasn't hungover or anything. I just didn't want to get up and go anywhere. So
No.
I'll make it to one, at least one at some point. We'll see when that is. So, but yeah, like it's also the string of games. Like it feels like we've been on the road. Like even combine the Jets game. Like we had the 2 games right off the bat, and then long stretch without, and the last 3 games on the road. So blame
Yeah.
Goodell and the schedule makers too, not me.
I have been blaming him. Don't worry. I've been blaming him. He's gave us 2 entire month gaps. And we didn't even get one fall weather game because that Detroit game, it was like 85 degrees out. So, yeah, I'm not happy about it. I think Dustin, though, was referring to the Josh Dobbs game last year where we had the spaceship
Oh,
set up.
yeah.
All of that.
I was in outer space for sure. Yeah.
yeah, you were in outer space, but I forgot about that. Dustin. Bring that up. But okay, looking forward to this Sunday, we've got a high of 20 degrees in the gold lot that we are anticipating, and we're not probably going to get to 20 degrees before kickoff, but we will have the heat pumping. We've got the generator now, so I don't know what kind of food we're going to do yet. Dustin has seen my new outfit that I'm going to debut.
Yeah, you guys are gonna love it.
Yeah, one of the only people who have seen it so far. Trend setting? Yes. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I guarantee there will be at least one person who goes and picks one up, but that's a whole other rant. Okay, let's talk about these Cardinals. Dustin, how are you feeling about it? Obviously, I Bleav aren't they in 8th place right now in the NFC, so they would. This is a very important game to them for them to win. And yeah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, they were in 4th place like 4 days ago. So yeah, the line of delineation in the NFC West is paper thin. The 49ers are almost ruling themselves out for playoff math, but the Rams are also right there. So that division is up for grabs. So I was I was unusually pessimistic about last week's game because of the sole fact it was at Soldier Field. Most of the time, the Vikings are at home. It's hard to pick against them unless they're playing some, juggernaut like the Chiefs last year in week 4, whatever it was. So I do think the Vikings win this one by a touchdown. Again, I'm going to reiterate that I am apprehensive about Ivan Pace not being there. One thing about, I guess, the Cardinals game or in general that I want to point out, and I didn't know if I'd remember on this show, this has to be the least enthusiastic we have all been about a 4-game win streak in my lifetime for the Vikings. They've won 4 straight on the road. We used to beg the Zimmer Vikings to go win games on the road, baby. Let's be as good as we can at all times. And they've won 4, but because it's against teams that are either mediocre or bad, we're just kind of like, oh, is that good? Well, of course it's good. They came off that 2-game losing streak. A valiant loss against the Lions, the stinker against the Rams with the face mask in the end zone, and they've responded exactly how we like. I think it's because they aren't as dominant as they were in September that our enthusiasm is a little muted, but they've won 4 straight games, and most of the fan base is like, well, I guess. Can they do a little bit better, please? So I'm glad that they're already at 9 wins. They could almost lose every single game from here on out and still be on the fringe of the final playoff spot. Of course, I don't think that will happen. They only really need to win 1 more to get in the postseason, which is better than any of us realistically thought they'd do. Kyler Murray will be better than Caleb Williams, and the Cardinals' defense is not good, but it's not like in the toilet like we thought the Jaguars would be. So I expect this game to be competitive, but I think the Vikings will prevail, something like 27-20. This enterprise really cooks when Aaron Jones and Cam Akers are able to get 4 or 5 yards a carry. And I hope they've learned their lesson this season that, hey, if you want to bring Aaron Jones back next year, great. But we need to have another running back before too long from the draft because Kevin O'Connell's system, I think, can get really good or close to unbeatable if you have a running back, kind of like prime Dalvin Cook from 2019 and 2020. So, Vikings over Cardinals by 7.
Wow. Okay, let me get your thoughts on this before I ask Ron. Bulldog says that we will see more of Dallas Turner on the field. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, they've been saying that for like a month where they're all like, oh, yeah, he's a freak. He's a beast. He's going to play. And then he pops up and plays 20 snaps, and we're like, hell yeah, baby. And then they don't really use him. Like the problem for Dallas Turner right now is he has too many unbenchable guys in front of him. I think, let's see, conversing with the Purple Persuasion on Twitter. Like right now, Patrick Jones is on pace for 11 sacks. Like you can't just bench the guy who's on pace for 11 sacks. And then we like to compare Dallas Turner to Jared Verse. There's nobody edgewise better than Jared Verse on the Rams roster right now. That's the way they designed it this offseason. The Vikings
Well,
have Andrew Van
technically, yes,
Ginkel.
because Braden Fisk has more sacks than Jared Verse on that same team. So, Jared Verse is an
The
impact player, but yeah,
Yeah, he's also 3 years older than Dallas Turner. He's a polished product.
exactly.
So I don't have any fears about Dallas Turner, and I do expect him to start acclimating more. But I really thought Patrick Jones would come back down to earth and not be getting these sacks, and then that way it'd be a natural pivot point. But Patrick Jones is in the final year of his contract. We'll see Dallas Turner for too long. I promise everybody this is a good problem to have. You have too many good edge rushers.
Yeah, I know. There's another good problem to have. We seem to have at least 3 of those, which is again very strange. But I think exactly he's got too many people ahead of him. Good, that's not a bad thing. But fans, I know you're so right. I didn't think about that. 3 games in a row on the road. When we looked at the schedule, we're like, I mean, of course, we didn't think they were going to have a record like this, but a 3-game road stretch is difficult for any team. On top of that, they went to London earlier this year. Then, they already had their Thursday night. They have had not a great schedule as far as away games go. And these last 3, not great teams, but, they pulled it out, and that's what good teams do. I don't know if it has to do with the low expectations that people had going into the season. And I don't think that it does, because I don't see many people on Twitter holding this team to those beginning expectations. It seems like now they're, criticizing them anywhere and everywhere that they can. So it must be that now we have talking points after September.
We saw what they could be in September. Yet we saw how they were beating people's asses handily, systematically each game, and we want to get back to that. So that's why. But if you could take a step back and realize Sam Darnold is your quarterback for better or worse, you were supposed to win 6.5 games according to odds makers. This is a house money season, and I'll continue to preach that everything about Vikings football comes down to whether or not J.J. McCarthy is the real deal.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%. All right, Ron, what are you looking forward to with this big matchup against the Cardinals this Sunday?
Well, I think I'm on the same boat in the same boat as Dustin. I think the Vikings win by 7 or more. But that's mainly because the Cardinals they're like an enigma. Like they're always expected to do better, and then they do worse, and then when they're not expected to do anything, they do better. And Kyler Murray, some games he looks phenomenal, looks like he's a top 5 quarterback in the league. Other games he looks pedestrian, and but in a lot of those games, he's able to get the job done. And same can be said with James Conner. Conner is the most unassuming running back out there, but yet all he does is get opportunities and he produces. But he's not dynamic or electric in any way. And their most dynamic and electric player, in Marvin Harrison Jr., looks like, I'm not going to say a bust, but he looks pedestrian. So that always makes me nervous. But again, our Flores defense, Gilmore's played better the last couple weeks. He had a rough stretch there where it looked like lack of effort, lack of awareness. But he maybe just too many games close together. I know the Thursday night after the Lions game, that was just a tough turnaround. But no, our defense has been playing well. Obviously our trio of safeties has been phenomenal, and then the pass rush. So hopefully Dallas Turner is able to add to that. But yeah, Patrick Jones, he had a rough few weeks there as well, but he's playing well. The Cardinals' offensive line can be had. They're not the greatest, so if you can get to Kyler Murray, but most importantly, keep him in the pocket, because if he gets out and runs, you're not catching him. He's fast, and he's in big head mode all the time because his helmet's so goddamn big on his body. But the Cardinals defense, they don't scare me, and we have weapons. So if they want to take away JJ again, and shout out to JJ, because how many number 1 receivers in the NFL come out and say either I feast or everyone else feasts? No, you look at Malik Neighbors, you look at Jamar Chase, and they're just bitches when they don't get the ball. So, we're lucky to have that guy on our team, and we have the weapons outside of him as well. So I'm not going to say we win by double digits, but I mean, I think we'll handle business at home for the first time in a while, and come out and they'll be excited.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, of course, I think all of us, we have PTSD from former wide receivers that we know and love, but get upset about, not being incorporated into the game and wanting to force a trade, down the road. And so it is so refreshing to see JJ come out and make those comments, because I know it's something I've thought of, even, this last game, like, oh my gosh, he's not getting the ball at all. Is he going to be upset? And so refreshing to see him come out and say the opposite. I went and snatched Dolly out of her slumber in bed because, Bulldog, I saw your profile picture of a Boston Terrier, and I don't know if you knew this, but I've got 2 of them, so had to get Dolly with another cameo. And Dave brought up Call of Duty. I was about to say that Kyler, again, he's got those hot and cold seasons. This season, I haven't watched him play at all, but from what I've heard, he's been doing better. Dustin, I know you have him in fantasy because I've faced you and him before. But Call of Duty, there was a new Call of Duty.
Since Call of Duty came out, so
yes, it's been like a month, right?
Then. Yeah,
it's been around a month. So since
all the experts had him highly ranked last week, and he was dog shit. So fantasy-wise,
and I think I should find that spreadsheet that somebody did on Reddit. Was it last year or 2 years ago, where they had all of the dates of Call of Duty releases, and then all of the dates of
like
Kyler
the X points weekend or something. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, the extra points weekends. That's what it was. The extra points weekends when they have it, and somebody really put in the time to do this. So I'm gonna go find that and post it for you guys. But okay, you guys, this was super fun. I also think that the Vikings will pull it out this week. I think that they are going to have a good home stretch here. As much as I bitch about the tailgating schedule and all of that, I mean, this is how you want to finish your season. Is what is it? 4 out of 5?
4
No,
4 out of the next 6 games are at home.
4 out of 6 at home. So that's how you want to wrap up your season. Fuck my stupid tailgate temperatures. But it was so fun to reconnect with you guys. I love you so much. And so I'm glad we got to do this. Thank you so much for coming on. We'll have to do it again.
Yeah. Hit my line, Sal.
Absolutely. Yeah,
okay.
Anytime.
All right. Thank you guys so much for watching and being active in the chat. Please subscribe to Vikings First and SKOL. And I'll talk to you guys Thursday night.
See ya.
Like, subscribe, and ring the bell. And rate us on your favorite aggregator. And a big shout out goes to Sal and her guests on this Vikings First and SKOL production, partnered with the Fans First Sports Network. Thanks, everyone. And SKOL.